how's the quarantine life treating you?
Not too bad. It's honestly not that different from what I was doing for the last like 5 months. So
What do you mean?
it's okay. It's just because I've been taking care of my dad. I've really been at home anyway. So it's not that different.
Right. How's he doing?
Much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. He should be back to work. I don't know, the fall or January, something like that. So that's a relief.
That's a relief. That sounds like a long time though.
Yeah. Do not take benzodiazepines no matter what.
I will take your advice, just like I'm taking your
Yes.
advice on the diet. So hopefully you steer me in the right direction on both of those fronts.
How's it going?
So far, so honestly, I think that in many ways the quarantine is making the diet easier. Like you tell me, when you first got on this diet, what was the social life like?
Oh, it's terrible for your social life. But I'd also been on a very restricted diet for like 2.5 years before that. So I was already used to it. Like if you're stuck eating, meat and greens with no sauces and everything, it's actually easier going out and ordering a steak than it is ordering greens and telling them how to prepare them. So it actually improved my social life just because I'd already been on a restrictive diet that was more complicated.
Right.
So, yeah.
What were people saying? What were your friends and family saying when you said that you were going to go on a carnivore diet?
Like I said, because I'd already been doing weird things for about 2.5 years, they weren't even that surprised, shockingly.
Really?
Like, I'd been talking about food all the time, constantly for a number of years. So they're like, well, it's just the next thing.
Yeah, it seems crazy though, because like when I tell people that, they think like literally most people that I talk to think that you will die if you don't eat vegetables, which is what I thought too, honestly, up until I heard your dad mention it a couple of years ago.
I thought that too. I mean, I was surprised. But then I'd heard people who'd been on it for like 10 years and figured if they weren't dead, then I might as well give it a shot. But did I surprise? I didn't really talk about it, honestly. Like I wasn't that interested in sharing that part of my life with people, even though I was. So I didn't really talk to friends and things about it just because there's so much backlash on an all meat diet. It's like, I don't really want to have those conversations or get into those arguments.
Yeah. Plus, anytime you even mention the word diet in any context, most people just shut their brain off and push you into some bin of people that they don't want to talk to. So it's probably a good strategy just to not talk about it if you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
But fortunately, you're giving me the pleasure of talking to you about your diet right now. So I really appreciate the opportunity because there's definitely been some struggles. But when did you first, like getting into the dieting in general, when did you first recognize that foods that you eat can actually contribute to the ailments that you're feeling? Because I never, for whatever, it sounds like super obvious in hindsight, but when I first put that together, it was like an epiphany.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Well, you get told by, we've grown up hearing the opposite, right? You should eat a varied diet and it doesn't really matter as long as you track calories and don't overeat and don't eat too much sugar, but you never really told why. It's like, because it's bad for you, but you don't really know why. It was 2015 April, I guess. April, that I figured gluten might be playing a role. And then it was September when I just cut out everything. And I didn't really think it was going to make much of a difference, but I figured if I wanted to go on an elimination diet, I should do it properly just to rule the dietary factor out. So that was September 2015.
And what was okay, so for me, it's actually interesting because the first month was one of the hardest months of my life, like trying to eliminate every single food from my life. But then the second month got kind of a lot easier where it didn't really bother me that much anymore, although I'm still a lot less restrictive than you are. But if I wasn't doing this for a YouTube series, honestly, or if I wasn't doing this for a documentary, I don't know that I would have had the discipline to stick through it. And by don't know if I would, I mean, there's no chance that I would have. So like, what was actually going on in your life before this that made you, that's compelling you to stick to this for so long?
Well, I had an autoimmune disorder and a mood disorder. So it was, and my skin was a disaster. So I actually had, there were reasons. If I didn't have serious reasons and if there weren't dramatic repercussions every time I tried to reintroduce a food, I wouldn't have stuck with it because why would you?
Right? Yeah. Did you get any benefits outside of curing those ailments?
I mean, yeah, like cognitive benefits. I mean, everything. Okay, so what happened? I lost weight. my cravings eventually went away. Like when you cut foods out and you have a microbiome change, the bacteria that were eating other foods start dying, and that gives you cravings. When you reintroduce those foods back in, those bacteria grow again, so you don't really have to worry about that. But that's why you're getting really horrible cravings at the beginning.
Yeah. How
Cognitive
long did it take you
benefits.
to get
How
rid of those
long did
cravings?
the cravings? If you're super strict, it's about 24 days, and one day they just turn off, right?
Yeah.
So it gets worse. Like the first 4 days are like, okay, like maybe I can do this. And then it gets way worse for 2 weeks
Yeah.
ish. And then it kind of goes up and down near the end where it's like, oh, today's not so bad. And then the next day is really bad. And then one day they just turn off unless you eat some of that food again, and then they turn right back on. So it's about 24 days, and they do go away entirely. Like now if I see, so like my husband eats a much more varied diet, and he's eating fruit, and he's always eating these like dried mangoes or whatever. And I don't really care.
Yeah.
So like, anyway, for
Yeah.
benefits, it wasn't
It's
just
funny
like,
though. Sorry to cut you off. It's funny because like I don't know if you recognize this, but I started to feel like my senses were becoming more attuned to everything around me. Like I could literally hear somebody eating a potato chip in the other room, and I feel like I could identify the flavor by sound. It was insane. Like
I'm not surprised. Yeah, it gets pretty intense. I had to get rid of things in my house. Like when I first cut out, even just when I went down to meat and greens and cut out apples. So that was literally, I was still getting some carbs from the greens. When I cut out apples, that was absolutely miserable.
yeah.
I had to get everything out of my house, and Andre was still eating apples, and they were in the fridge. And there was one day, it was like, I don't know, a week in, and I was like, okay, this is stupid. I'm being overly paranoid. I'll just have some apples. And I had like 4 apples, and nobody eats that many apples in a row. And I ate 4 apples, and I felt like shit. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, like, yeah, that was not controlled, but like, I couldn't control it. And then I felt terrible afterwards. I got arthritis again, and my mood dipped, and I was like, okay, that was enough of a whack on the head to cut out apples and go to meat and greens. And going from meat and greens to just meat, fortunately, didn't cause any cravings. I'd already cut out so many carbs that it was really the apple craving thing that happened. That was the last of my cravings, and meat and greens to just meat didn't cause any cravings. So I feel
Yeah.
for you because they suck.
Well, I can see that because I mean, to be honest, they're kind of completely gone now. It's like you said, it was probably right around the 24-day mark where they started to go away completely. Yeah. And even just like the packaging on candy wrappers, I'm like, this should be illegal. They're really attracting kids. Like, I'm a grown man. I'm being attracted to these. My mouth is watering from the sight of a pack of Sour Patch Kids. It's crazy.
Sour Patch, I know. Sour Patch was my weakness too.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's my favorite candy.
Yeah, me too. I legitimately, I go into a corner store. Fortunately, I don't have to do this too often, but if I go into a store for any reason, I see a pack, I'm like, this is torture. Store.
I know.
I'm also starting to recognize all the new foods that they have. Like they have like Timbit cereal and Frosted Flakes with Lucky Charms inside of them. And I'm like, what? Is this the universe trying to torture me right now? Because they know that I'm on this crazy diet. But it's funny that you mentioned.
Avoid those areas.
I try to. It's funny that you mentioned apples though, because that was the only thing, like really of everything that I was craving for the first couple of weeks, apples like stood out more than anything. I'm like, I just want an apple so bad right now.
Interesting. Well, I'd say like once you give this a try just for the documentary series, see how you feel, see how you're doing. Like a lot of people who don't have any health problems, so they probably don't have any gut problems, can benefit from adding some carbs back in, especially if they're doing really intense exercise or athletic. And there are also like, and I know a lot of people in the carnivore community are like, no, this is the way people are supposed to eat. But like, no, people are not supposed to just eat meat without the ability to process carbs at all. So what I've seen work the best for healthy people, for people with autoimmune disorders, they have so much damage already that this is what I recommend because they're already kind of screwed. Same with mood disorders. But if you don't really have anything and you're an athletic dude, you can add in some of the more paleo carbs. So sweet potatoes, carrots, fruit, stuff like that. And some people see a lot of benefit doing that. Like Andre did the lion diet specifically. So beef, salt, and water for about 6 months. And that seemed to, and he had a mood disorder previously, and that seemed to heal whatever was wrong. And so now he can tolerate a lot more foods without any negative repercussions. So we'll see how you feel. Like there are definitely cognitive benefits and energy benefits that I've found, but if you're already healthy, I don't think there's anything wrong with like having some carbs, especially if you're exercising, because you can burn through those really easily. And a lot of people who exercise can still stay in refeed with carbs and stay in ketosis, just because their body is so good at using them. So it'll be interesting to see what this does for you, being a healthy person, trying it. And I know lots of people who are healthy, who are on a carnivore diet, who are doing really well, but not everybody does as well as they could with zero carbs. So I'm kind of interested to see what'll happen.
Right. So it's almost like based on what your existing issues are and what your end goals are.
Yeah. And like Paul Saladino, for example, is a doctor who's on the carnivore diet, and he's been on it for, I think, 2 years. And he does like meat and eggs and fish. He does the regular carnivore diet without dairy. And his only problem was he had fairly severe eczema, which is still a problem, right? And that went away on the carnivore diet, and he's happy on it. And he's super muscular, works out all the time, and he's fine. But so I would categorize him as like a healthy person. He only had one like smaller issue, and he's doing well. But then there are a lot of particularly like bigger men who do well with some carbs. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing. Do you eat any organ meat?
No, I had one winter where I was craving liver, so I had liver, but I don't like
Craving it.
Yeah, weird, right? I used to hate liver. And then it was like a year into the all beef diet, and I had cravings for liver, and it tasted sweet, like it smelled good. I was like, what the hell? So I had liver for about 5 months, and then it didn't taste very good again, so I haven't really had it since. Right. So no, I don't like add in collagen or liver or anything unless I feel like I need it.
Yeah, because the one thing I noticed with liver is that it has some carbs, and that might be where that sweet taste is coming from.
Yeah, it's weird you can taste that, huh? Because I could never taste that in liver. Like liver was always gross and kind of bitter. And then you cut out all sugar, and it's like you can taste the carbs in liver. That's
you're
weird.
Like, it's sweet.
Yeah.
It is very weird. Do you think that's an indication that your body's telling you, like, maybe you need this if you're having that sweet craving?
I think mine was a vitamin D problem, because it started in the winter, and you can get pretty good vitamin D from liver. So I think it was just that. I'm not sure. That'd be my guess anyway.
Yeah. So you're doing fine with no, because that's like, it seems to be one of the debates from people, from things I see, is that some people say that you need to eat organ meat, and then others say that you don't need to eat it.
I don't know why anybody who's a proponent of this diet is saying you need to do certain things. I guess I say you should keep your fat up. And that's because if you only eat lean. So I guess I am saying part of that. But a lot of the people who are like, you need a certain amount of collagen, you need a certain amount of liver, I don't know, throw all these supplements at it, or you're going to be down certain vitamins. There's actually no evidence for that, considering the fact that no one has really been scientifically monitored for long enough on this diet to be able to claim anything.
Yeah. I mean, that really seems to be the problem with any diet, realistically, is like, how are you going to possibly control every aspect that affects somebody? Like, there's so many external factors that it's impossible to isolate this one specific variable. Although it becomes more possible with the carnivore diet, because you're eating so few different types of food, which is what I love about it. Because now, like, when I get down to the point where I'm just eating beef, then I can start to slowly experiment one by one, adding these foods back in and finding out what is the actual 100% best diet that I could possibly be eating.
I know, that's what I like about it too, is just get rid of all the variables, and then you can actually see what's going on. What I have seen though, when you start to, and we can have another conversation then, but when you start to reintroduce foods, sometimes foods that are still okay for you will make you not feel so good at the beginning while your body's getting used to it. So it's kind of it's kind of tricky, because just because you eat it and it doesn't make you feel good right away doesn't mean that it won't make you feel better in a week. So we'll have a conversation about that later. Like, I know when Andre went from all beef, started reintroducing things, like he got brain fog sometimes or bloating sometimes. And then once his body got used to it, he started getting more, he said more positive emotion, which makes sense, because a lot of the carb eating bacteria actually help you produce neurotransmitters. So this is really complicated. And anybody who simplifies it down to one diet is the best diet, or people aren't different. or
Yeah.
people need, I don't know, to eat brains, or they won't get, I don't know.
Yeah. That was one of I listened to this interview with Paul Saladino on, have you listened to this on the Health Theory podcast?
I haven't listened to that one, and specifically, no.
Okay. It's funny because the guy, this guy, Tom Bilyeu, he was the founder of Quest Nutrition. I don't know
Oh
if you're
yeah,
familiar
I
with
know
him.
him.
Yeah. So he had this interview with Paul, and he's asking him if he needs to eat organ meat. And Paul's like, well, it's probably okay for the first couple of months, but I like to eat organ meat. He's like, well, what do you eat? And he's like, well, I start off by eating some raw liver, and then I eat raw kidney, and I eat raw brain. And I'm like, oh fuck, I can't go down this rabbit hole. I can't even come. I don't. Whatever I do in life, like I'm looking to find the absolute most optimal diet for myself, but I also
it is not that.
Yeah, I also still want to be able to socialize with regular people and not have them looking at me like I'm some kind of lunatic.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like, well, an all steak diet is one thing, but no, you do not need to eat raw organs. Come on.
Yeah,
like, this diet is hard enough on your social life. Like, you don't need to be like, people, get in your raw brain, because then, oh my God.
Yeah, it's like bringing your Tinder date home for the first time and look in your fridge and you just got a raw brain sitting on a plate. I don't know how well that's going to do for your dating prospects.
Not ideal. Yeah.
Not ideal in many ways. So I don't know if if that has the maximum nutritional value possible. I could keep that for the Fear Factor contestants.
Yes, definitely.
So when did you start recognizing that you were like different from other kids when you were a kid? Like, when did you start realizing that you had issues that other people weren't experiencing?
I actually didn't realize. My parents realized first. Like, I was young enough that when I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, technically, when I was 7. But I wasn't aware that was different than anybody else. Like, they brought me in because I was walking down the stairs 1 foot at a time, and I was limping, and I was tired, and I was crabby, and they were like, okay, something's wrong. Like, the thing I remember is I was complaining that my shoes felt too small. So that's all I really remember. That's how long ago it was. It was like, Mom, my shoes are too small. We need to get bigger shoes. And I was wearing shoes that were like 5 or 6 times as big because my feet hurt so much. Wow. So that's what I remember. When you're a kid and you're sick, it's not like, okay, if you're diagnosed with something in your mid-20s and up, it's like a catastrophe because it changes what you used to know. If you don't have anything that you used to know and it doesn't change anything, it's really not as hard on you.
What do you mean?
I mean, psychologically, it's not as hard on you. It's like my feet hurt since I can remember. So it wasn't as if I started experiencing symptoms. I'm not sure exactly how to explain it, but I've seen a lot of people who are diagnosed with autoimmune disorders in their mid-20s and up, and it destroys their life. They're like, really? Oh, all these things I used to have. Yeah, because you go from being, a functioning person to having, depending on how bad the autoimmune disorder is, having some serious difficulty. And if you're a kid with it, you kind of just grow up that way. So you're used to it, kind of. That was my experience anyway. So it would have been better on my body if I hadn't had it until I was later, but it was probably easier psychologically being diagnosed when I was younger.
I can kind of see what you're saying. Like, did you have any aspirations when you were a kid? Like what you wanted to be when you were older?
Yeah, and it stopped some of those things. Like, I started wanting to be a surgeon, and by the time I was 14, I was like, well, that's not going to work because I have arthritis in my hands. You can't be an arthritic surgeon. So there's that. And then I wanted to go to medical school, but then I had to take extra years of high school because of my hip and ankle replacement. So I couldn't get all my sciences, and I wasn't planning on staying in high school for 3 extra years. So then that went out the window. So yeah, it definitely stopped some of the things I wanted to do, for sure.
Wow. Yeah, that's rough. So if you would have got diagnosed even earlier, I guess you were diagnosed, but if you would have found the solution even earlier, then perhaps you would have been able to, you would have been on a completely different trajectory in life right now.
That's why I talk about this, because it's really frustrating. Like, I had, for instance, I had my ankle replaced when I was 17, and that's totally screwed up my body. Like, you can't get a joint replaced. Hip replacements and knee replacements are pretty good, but you can't replace a joint and not have repercussions after that. It's not like you go back to pre-injured joint. So now I'm stuck with joint replacements. So I'm never going to be able to get my body to the point that I'm really happy with it for my entire life. Like, that's a big deal. This isn't something that I can train out. Right. And so part of the reason I talk about this is because if you end up with severe enough health problems that you need surgery, you can stop your future from being all it could. So that's also why I tell healthy people to really play around with their diet and figure out what the optimal diet is for them before they get to that point, because they don't know what being seriously ill is going to do to their future.
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like this is like, even for a healthy person, I feel like this is the best possible elimination diet because of everything we mentioned earlier. Like, you can really start to experiment with these individual food groups and see which one leads to positive benefits and which one has some negative repercussions, and like design. I don't know how, I realistically don't know how many people have the discipline to do that. It's probably a very small percentage of people.
Really hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard, especially with the cravings. I'm surprised given the fact that you don't have health issues, you've been able to stick with it, because the cravings are like, it's like going through an intense drug withdrawal. And that's coming from somebody like, I went through OxyContin withdrawal after my hip and ankle replacement. Yeah. And I had 6 weeks and it sucked. But honestly, removing carbs and cutting out all sugar, it was shorter, but psychologically it was more difficult than an OxyContin withdrawal. Yeah, for sure. Like, physically, the OxyContin withdrawal was worse. Like, there was more physical feelings, but psychologically it was easier than the carb withdrawal. So that's pretty intense.
Well, I can see that, because with carbs, it's like you've built your entire life around consuming these things. Like, you consume them probably 3 meals a day, every day for, when did you start? When did you discover this diet?
2015.
So you would have been like in your mid-20s?
23, yeah.
Yeah, so over 20 years of eating carbs several times a day. And then all of a sudden, did you do it instantly? Like, was it just like one shot, done,
no,
never having this again?
Like, luckily. So you probably, well, no. I cut out gluten first because I thought maybe gluten was just the problem. Maybe it was only gluten. So I cut out gluten first. And that wasn't that difficult because you can just replace everything with gluten-free things.
Right.
So I cut out gluten. Then the first difficult month was when I went down to, it was an elimination diet that I kind of just came up with, and it was all meat, greens, and then very limited root vegetables. I think that was it. Some spices, like some oils, some of the healthier oils. And that was tough, but I was also taking Adderall at the time, really high dose of Adderall, and that completely obliterates your appetite. So it wasn't as hard as it should have been because I had zero appetite. And obviously that wasn't on purpose. It was just something that happened, and I can look back on it and think, oh, that should have been a lot harder than it was. Right. But that was the first thing.
It's then like I did a 3-day fast and I had Adderall. And it's like, maybe the fast was easy because you're on it.
Exactly. And then I cut out fruit and sweet potatoes, like the carbier things, and went down to meat and greens. And that was really hard. And then I went down to just meat, which wasn't hard because I just, like I said, I just dropped the greens. So I did do it gradually.
And then the greens aren't really like, there's not really a lot of people out there being like, I really want a salad right now. Like, if I'm going to on this diet, it's not going to be with it. Were you really?
I love salad. Yeah. I love salad. Like, a lot of people who do the carnivore diet are like, I never liked vegetables, which is like not true. I love vegetables.
Don't get me wrong. I liked vegetables too, especially before this. I would like fry up broccoli and make salads.
Exactly.
All that kind of good stuff. It's delicious. But if I was going to cheat on this diet for one day, I promise you it would not be, the first thing I go for would not be a salad.
I go for apples.
Apples. 100%. First thing I'm introducing is an apple. Royal Gala or Fuji. I even got that. Yeah. I'm starting with a specific type of apple too. I'm not just going to go all in on the apple bandwagon.
Types of apples. You don't want the mushy red ones, right?
Oh no. Ugh. Got to be real specific.
Yeah.
So are you going to try? Have you tried? Well, actually, I should back up a little bit. When you went to the carnivore diet, what made you think, okay, now I don't want to do? Were you doing eggs when you first went carnivore?
No, I dropped eggs I dropped eggs in 2015 because I cut out all the foods that I thought could be allergenic, and lots of people are allergic to eggs. So I cut out eggs and dairy right at the beginning, 2015, way before carnivore.
Yeah. Dairy for me was actually the first food that made me recognize that food has some relation to your physical health, because honestly, I think I just thought of, I don't know what I thought of food as. Like, it's just a thing that you do. And
Yeah.
then I finally, like, I'm like, okay, I want to get in better shape. So the first thing I did was just eliminate dairy. And then after probably about a month or two, I had some dairy, and I never realized, and this is another reason why I was interested to go carnivore, because I never realized that dairy was having any negative impact on me
Yeah.
until I like drank a glass of milk or had a bowl of ice cream or consumed dairy in some form. And I was like decapitated. Like, I felt like I was in a coma
Yeah.
on my couch for the next 5 hours. It was crazy. And I'm like, is this something I'm just dealing with on a daily basis? And it's just become like such like a low grade pain that I'm just constantly dealing with this? Or like, how much better could my life be if I eliminate all of these things that are causing these issues?
Yeah, exactly. I had a similar experience. My dairy reintroduction was a catastrophe. I thought I was going to have to go to the hospital. Like, I
Really?
was in so much pain, yeah, that I was like, do I have to go to the hospital? What are they even going to do there? I just kind of waited it out. But I do think that when you cut these, I think your body does get used. It depends on the body, but I think your body does get used to a level of inflammation. And yeah, it's not ideal, and yeah, you can feel it, but it's not as bad as when you take it out and your body gets used to not having it, and then you reintroduce it and you have a way worse reaction. Like, I thought about that for a while when I was reintroducing foods and was like, was I always experiencing this? Like, and I just got used to it.
Right.
But I don't think so. Like, I think my experiences reintroducing were far worse than what I'd been experiencing all the time before. It was still worth getting rid of them, but
Yeah.
I do think the reintroductions are worse.
Yeah. I think it has to be, because there's no same thing. Like, when I had that dairy, there's no way that I was just always feeling like that when I
Yeah,
was growing up drinking a cup of milk every day. But
exactly.
there's probably still some low grade version of that that's constantly plaguing you throughout life.
Yeah, and if you eat something and it makes you, if you take something away and you bring it back and it makes you feel that bad, you probably shouldn't be eating it.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it too. So once you did go carnivore, what made you want to drop all the other meats other than just ruminants, right?
Yeah, just ruminants. Honestly, it was kind of desperation. Like, I didn't want to. Chicken, I love chicken and fish, but I was still feeling pretty terrible that first month. And now I know a lot of that could have been transition, right? But I was getting bloated after I ate. I was experiencing brain fog, and these are things that I hadn't been experiencing when I originally cut everything out to my elimination diet. Like, on that elimination diet with the limited fruit and vegetables, I felt awesome until I got pregnant. I was asymptomatic. I would never have gone to the carnivore diet, except I got pregnant and my autoimmune symptoms came back, and then they just didn't go away. And I was like, what? These were foods that I could tolerate. Now I can't. And I think that has something to do with the microbiome change that happens during pregnancy. There's evidence that the number of bacteria go down and get less varied. So maybe that had something to do with it. But the reason I cut out the other meat is because I just wasn't feeling good at all. And I needed one variable. And I'd heard from other people that people seem to tolerate beef the best. And I just figured, okay, I need one variable. I can't, like, as soon as you're down to all meat and you're still experiencing symptoms, like, you might as well just go to beef. So there's only one variable and you can figure it out.
Right.
And then when I tried to reintroduce chicken, it didn't go well, and it didn't go terribly. It just didn't make me feel good afterwards. This is so I went to all beef. Eventually my symptoms went away. I tried to reintroduce chicken, and I felt like,
how long was that after the beef?
6 weeks. So it only took a few weeks for my joints to stop hurting. It took 6 weeks before the depression I was experiencing lifted, and it took 5 months before the anxiety went away. So the anxiety took a long time, and I think that was just like your brain takes a long time to heal. Nerves take a long time to regrow. So I don't know. I think that's why the anxiety took so long. Like, when I first went, the interesting thing is when I first went to the elimination diet, it was September, and December is when my depression lifted. So it still took a while afterwards. Everything else was faster. All the physical pain I was experiencing was a lot faster. So I didn't reintroduce chicken for the first 6 weeks. It was after that. And then I reintroduced it. I just felt like groggy and slow. And I was like, it's not worth it. It wasn't like a horrible autoimmune response. It was just, it didn't make me feel as good as beef. And then because chicken didn't make me feel good, I didn't even bother with fish. I was at that point. So that's what
Was
happened.
it that bad that you're like, it's not even worth it?
Yeah, I was pretty foggy. I've had chicken recently and fish. So I went on
Yeah, I
the all
saw
beef
that, I think.
diet. Yeah, I didn't eat anything other than beef. I didn't take any pills. Like, I didn't do anything. Well, that's not true. I was still drinking vodka and bourbon
Yeah.
because that didn't seem
Together.
to do anything. sometimes. Like, I need all the mixtures I can have
Yeah.
on this limited diet.
Any variety of
But
flavor is good,
exactly.
as long as it's not raw brain.
As long as it's not raw brain. I actually tried raw brain. I went to a carnivore conference and there was raw brain there, and everyone tried it, and I tried it, and it was exactly like you think it would be. It was kind of like eating an oyster with no sauce. It was horrible. I hate oysters.
Oh
But
my
it
God.
was just like, this is repulsive. No, thank you.
Yeah, the first time I had oysters, well, this is actually kind of interesting because I went to Vegas when I was 21. My friend's dad got comped a bunch of money, so he got us this like super nice steak and oyster dinner. And at that time, I literally like did not like steak. I thought that steak was like my parents were cooking steak for dinner. I thought, oh shit, I don't even want to eat tonight. And then now I'm on this diet where the only thing I eat is steak. So it's kind of funny like how that contrast happens. But I remember we were having this like super expensive, most expensive dinner I've ever had in my life, and we're eating oysters, and I think I was like gagging in the bathroom afterwards. I'm like, this is the nastiest thing I've ever tasted.
Yeah, that's how I feel about oysters as well, and brain, raw brain. Yep.
Well, you gotta try everything once.
Well, that's what I figured too. I was like, but it was not good. I would not recommend it.
Yeah,
there's a picture of me on Instagram like making a face. It's horrible.
I gotta look that up. I would try that once, but it would probably be for like a YouTube video or something. I could get some.
Yeah, like catch it. Like, do this for a reason.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Don't just taste it just for the. I don't know. But what were you saying before that? You still had some when you were drinking the alcohol, the vodka and bourbon.
Yeah. So I didn't drink alcohol for almost a year, and
was that tough? Quitting alcohol?
Yeah, it was tough. It coincided with me raising a baby though, so that made it a lot easier. It still sucked, but it made it easier. I thought I was reacting to alcohol because my go-to drink was gin, and it turns out gin adds botanicals after they distill it. And one of the gins, I found this out the hard way because Beefeater's gin actually adds almond extract afterwards. So realistically, they should put a nut allergy warning on Beefeater gin. And I actually have a nut allergy. So I had a really severe allergic reaction to Beefeater's gin. And that was when I realized that gin actually adds ingredients after distillation. So then I did some Googling, and it was like, oh, vodka, as long as it doesn't have sugar or anything added, vodka is pure and bourbon is pure. And it gets its color from the caskets it's aged in, but it's actually just distilled. It doesn't have anything in it. And so other scotches can add caramel coloring, so they add sugar. But bourbon is called bourbon because it's made a specific way from Kentucky. Anyway, so I reintroduced those eventually, and nothing seemed to happen except that my propensity towards having a terrible hangover had increased by like tenfold without carbs. And my reaction to alcohol was a little bit different. It actually worked like more of a depressant than what it used to. And it used to just give me energy. And so I don't really drink anymore because I don't have the same reaction as I used to.
Yeah, I might have to try reintroducing that at some point, but
just be careful. Your tolerance will have gone down, and the hangovers are brutal. And I would recommend mixing it with water because I think most of the hangover is dehydration. So yeah, don't have a shot. You're gonna die.
Yeah.
It'll be horrible the next day. Yeah. But without carbs, it makes such a difference. It's amazing.
The hangovers have already been getting worse for me the older that I get, and maybe just the more tuned I get with my diet. So I'm like kind of that one hasn't been too hard for me. Although we're also under quarantine, so it's not like there's a lot of opportunities to be going out and socializing over drinks. So you'll still have a drink from now on, like occasionally?
Very occasionally, but not really. It really does not make me feel very good.
Right.
So no, not really. But it doesn't seem to trigger autoimmune symptoms or mood symptoms, so that's good.
Yeah. Do you drink coffee? How long have you cut that out for?
Since 2015.
Oh.
Yeah, I cut most things out in 2015, so it's been a while.
Yeah. How was that? Because basically, I mean, you see me drinking a cup right now, but it's like literally just a cup of what was hot water. Now it's just lukewarm water. Yeah. It's kind of nasty.
You're on the same page as my dad and I. Are like hot water,
is that what you
water,
do?
Flat water, salt water. Yeah, hot water.
Oh yeah, I got the sparkly water here too. That's nice. Yeah.
I was never a huge coffee fan. I did 23andMe, and it turns out I metabolize caffeine really quickly, and it's people who take a long time to metabolize caffeine that actually like it. then you get an up and you get a slow, like a down,
Mm.
and I was just getting this like jolt and then a crash. I was like, ugh, I don't
Yeah,
like
that's
this
not good.
feeling. So no, so caffeine was not hard to drop because I just didn't like the feeling to begin with.
Right. Oh, that just reminds me. You said that you were taking Adderall before. Was that for like ADD?
No, it was for idiopathic hypersomnia. So I was sleeping all the time and I couldn't wake up, and I was taking Adderall just because that's what kept me awake during the day.
Wow.
Yeah, I
And
had a slew of issues.
did you like it?
No, but I liked it a lot more than being groggy and not waking up.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, no, I didn't like it. It was just made my heart beat out of my chest all the time. I was on a high enough dose to keep me awake. I was still napping in the afternoon, and like napping on 40 milligrams of Adderall is totally screwed up because you're literally like vibrating
Yeah.
and still asleep. It just doesn't, like, something is seriously wrong with your body if you can do that. But no, I didn't
Yeah.
like it, but it did wake me up enough to be able to research to eventually come to the conclusion that diet was probably a factor or the factor in my illnesses to cure my illnesses and get off of the Adderall. So it was useful.
Yeah. So the Adderall solved the problem of using Adderall.
Yeah.
That's like a virtuous circle that my head can't even comprehend right now. Yeah, I've tried it in the past, and it's interesting because it seems like it gives you a lot of focus. Well, my mind's on this right now because of the coffee, but the Adderall would always make me feel like, okay, I'm super focused. I'm getting tons of stuff done. But what I would realize is like I've just been working on this one thing that I should have wrapped up like 4 hours
Exactly.
ago.
Exactly. It makes you feel as if you're productive, but there's no actual measurement of whether or not you are productive.
Right.
But it sure makes you feel like you are.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever you're working on is like the most important task ever. And
Yeah.
don't switch to something else because you got to make this thing 100%. Whereas,
And nobody interrupt you.
yeah, no, yeah, if you're going to interrupt me, oh boy, this game is over. We are no longer friends. We're no longer in communication.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I have to run. I have to be
oh,
somewhere 1 minute ago.
shoot. Okay, wait. If I can ask one more question?
Yeah.
I forget what the most important question was now. Shit. What about,
No.
do you use, I had something really important, but I'll get back to it another time. What about cannabis? Do you use that at all?
So I didn't smoke anything for like years either when I first went on this diet because I didn't know what kind of things triggered the autoimmune symptoms. And it turns out this really is a gut issue. So it seems to be things that are swallowed that are the problem.
Mm.
So inhaled things don't seem to matter, but no, I don't use weed either. I used it a little bit over the summer to help with anxiety, because it's really useful for me for anxiety. But I haven't used that since like September or something. So I don't
Yeah.
really use that either.
Are you ever going to try reintroducing anything again?
Yeah, I am. Definitely. I don't know exactly. I have to think about it, and I'm, worried, and I have to be careful. But I'll probably start with some of the foods that were on my safe list before I was pregnant, and see how that goes. I think. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of torn because it would be nice to reintroduce if I can lower my reactions, right? Like, make myself less sensitive. I also want to see if maybe it would improve my life somehow if I reintroduced. But on the other hand, this diet's really, really super convenient. And I have
Yeah.
a hard time leaving that behind. Like, I don't eat until like 2 or 3, and then I have like a steak or like some burgers, and that's it. And it's so easy and it's so
Yeah.
nice. And for somebody who really wants to work all the time, it's like I don't really want to have the need to start snacking again. I certainly don't want to be peeling vegetables. I hate peeling vegetables. I
Yep.
don't even really like cooking. So I don't know. Yes, I want to reintroduce because I miss having apples. It'd be nice to
Yes.
have like a steak
That's
and apple diet. I could do a
so
steak and apple diet.
I don't know if you see any of the videos I put up, but it's so funny that you say that because that's literally the only thing that I want to put back into my diet. And like, I am looking forward to day 90 of this just so I can be like, okay, I'm trying an apple
Apples.
again.
Yeah, I could do steak and apples and I'd be happy with that. But that's what I think I would be like. Ideally, that's what I'd end up with. Steak and then some, I don't know, sort of fruit or maybe a
Right.
salad. I don't know. Like, I don't mind how limited it is, but I'd like to desensitize myself, and I'm curious to see what would happen. That's a big part.
Okay. Well, maybe when I finish up this lion diet, you and I can reintroduce these at the same time. So if we go through any struggles, I mean, your struggles would probably be a lot worse than mine, but maybe we'll suffer through some of them together.
Okay, we could do that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm very happy that we finally got to speak. Hopefully you're not going to be locked down in Florida for too much longer. It'd be great to chat when you get back here too.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm going to be back in June, at the beginning of June.
Nice. Is that like, have they actually announced that they're opening the borders again?
No, but you can come back if you're Canadian.
Oh, true. Sweet. Yeah. My brother's locked down there right now too, so maybe he can maybe he can head back if he needs to.
He could. He might just be using that as an excuse to not come home, but like he can.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Because my mom's always telling him like, "Why don't you guys just come home? Why don't you just come?" And we're like, "There's a reason that we're not living at home." So that's probably so I can imagine that you're going through some struggles right now too, just being locked in like around, just even with people that you love. It's like that much time together can kind of start to drive you crazy.
Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah. Well, so anyways, let me know when you're back. It'd be great to catch up then. And I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time to chat today. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Steve. Good luck with everything. I'm impressed that you've made it this far with no health problems pushing you in this direction. But good luck with the lion diet. And I'm looking forward to your reintroduction videos as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how this ramps up in difficulty, but I'm also excited for the challenge.
Good for you.
Awesome. All right. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Bye.
See ya.